In yesterday's video, I spoke about submission and how that was really a gift to me. Today is kind of an extension of that. Today is allowing yourself to enjoy the ride and the process. So I touched yesterday on, my typical route to the result that I want is to take the hardest, most possible, most arduous route there. Before I started listening to guidance from God. But now that I really try to lean to that guidance more than my own ego-driven guidance, I have a much more my actions are just much more balanced and less manic. There's less forcing, and I allow myself to kind of just enjoy the present moment instead of pushing all the time. I'm still learning to do that. That's a constant kind of reframe for me. But what I wanted to talk about today is the I'm trying to couch it as beauty, but the uncertainty that we face every day that is within feeling guided. Because I do feel guided, and you can continue to feel guided and also experience uncertainty. So when that comes up for me, what I try to do is I always try to back into enjoying the process. You know, nothing is fixed. Your worst day won't stick, and neither will your best. They don't. Remnants might stay with you. Memories might stay with you, but you are not there unless you choose to stick yourself there. So it's the pliability that comes along with the submission that I'm focusing on today. Allowing yourself to kind of get buffeted against the rocks without stiffening up or without completely yielding. Don't yield and drown, but don't clench so tight that every time you hit a rock, you lose some skin. Let yourself be banged up a little bit. Let the uncertainty rattle around in there. Your stories are going to go off. Bing, bing, bing. But if you can recognize them as such and smile through them a bit ruefully, you'll be better off. Now, sometimes you can't let it go. And no matter how you try to move that energy, it remains. That's okay. That's okay. And maybe that is your intuition giving you a hint. Don't discount that. So I also want to just talk about one more topic. I really do try to keep these with a single topic of a piece, but this brought up something for me that I think is so important to understand. There is the voice of God that you hear. And for me, I don't hear that inside my head. I almost hear that as a full body communication. I feel it more than I hear it, right? I allow that information or that download to just physically, porously, like osmosis wise, come through me. And then there's your inner voice. And your inner voice sometimes can be ego driven, but that's not always a bad thing, as I've discussed before. And sometimes it's your intuition being like, tick, 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 this is something to look at. But I think the conflagration is, and the issue can be, if you think you're hearing one, but it's disguised as the other. If you think you're hearing God, but it's very self-serving. One of the things I do in my journaling is I always write down the data, the literal facts of the situation, write down my feelings, write down my desired outcome, and also write down the opposite, the exact opposite, using the same language and just the negation of that to describe what's going on for me. Because if there's a kernel of truth in it, it's your ego talking. It's so important to look at the story that you're thinking in your mind and then look at its mirror image. Because if there's truth in its mirror image, you're lying somewhere. This is not where I started, but this is where we are coming to. So today, a couple of concepts come up. Pliability, the ability to enjoy the process and try not to get too abraded by the stones that wash by you, and the discrimination to understand the potency and value of your own inner voice, but not confusing that with the voice of God. They're very different for me, but sometimes the story I tell is so eloquent, I trick myself. And it's only by investigating the opposite that I'm like, oh, something to look at there. So a lot of layers today. Take from this what comes to you and what resonates the most for you. And I will see you tomorrow.